Agenda item number 12 is, or 13 is our final budget amendment and original budget. Nancy will continue on.
Where are you? Okay, yep. There we go. And then hit slideshow. So this is just some additional information that we're adding this year that we haven't passed out in the past. So we're not going to talk about, this isn't something that we're going to talk about tonight, it's just additional information for you to look at.
So review this, and then if you have any questions on it, we'll send it to Diane. Okay.
Just background information, it's not, a lot of it is historical. Nancy has heard kind of questions and comments throughout a couple of years she's been here, and just wanted to kind of see if this was helpful as we get ready for the budget.
Okay. Thank you. So my question would be then, are we going to use this information as we go through the budget?
Everything's, that's historical, a lot of that is past.
Okay.
But everything with regards to the budget's included in consent. Yeah.
So set this to the side, is what you're saying?
So this is
right
Yeah,
now?
yeah, it's just
information.
additional information.
For
Because
more
we had
knowledge.
2 weeks before the budget hearing. Again, it was just being proactive to give more information.
Okay.
All right, Nancy, you're in.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
So the first slide, this is our proposed general fund budget. It includes our proposed amendment number 2, as well as our estimated proposed budget for 26-27. If you look at the proposed budget, we are updating that and moving from, in Amendment 1, we had a deficit of 3.9 million. We are updating that to a deficit of 2.4 million. Which would bring our fund balance as a percentage of expenditures to 18.43, percentage of revenue to 18.97. A lot of this, as you can see, if you look at the revenue line, we're moving from 80 million, just over 80 million, to just over 81 million. Some of those increases, we received some additional federal dollars that we were not anticipating. We also received some additional Medicaid dollars. Medicaid's a little bit hard to predict. We're never really sure how much we're going to get from the ISD. We ended up this year receiving quite a bit more than we usually do, so that's exciting. That we're getting reimbursed for those services that we are performing for our students. So those are the couple big areas that went up. You can see the expenditures did. They went down a little bit. A lot of that having to do with just truing up and looking at where we've actually been spending. We're almost near the end of the year, so that we can see some areas that we're not going to spend this year. Moving to the proposed budget, the big change there, you can see the revenue is down quite a bit. It's down to just over 75, almost 75.5 million from the 81 that we're estimating to end the year with. A lot of those changes, a lot of the reduction, number one, the first thing is we're looking to have a reduction in about 200 students, or 195 is what we'll get paid on. We have quite a few grants that we will not receive, that we are not anticipating receiving next year. They've said that we will not receive them. One of the bigger ones, 147L, was a MIBSERS contribution that they gave us to help offset the 3% health cost. Our district received $532,000 for that. They will not be, they have all, in all the plans, governor, state, house, they have said this is repealed and they will not be giving that money again. We also have a reduction in 147A2, which is our normal cost offset. Between the two of those, it's about $300,000. And there's some other grants. We received an education compensation, or educator compensation grant this year that was just under $700,000. That is not in the budget for next year. Section 35N, Raising Innovation, Literacy Improvement, these are all grants. So this is where you're seeing the reduction in revenue. Also, our UAL is going from 15.51, I have it in the slide, 15.51 down to 15.02 to 13.51. While this doesn't have an effect on the fund balance, it does reduce the amount of revenue we get, and then it reduces the amount of expenditures as well. So when they change that UAL percentage, you're really seeing over the years, I mean, it has been as high as 20%, it's been down to 10%, and that really makes our revenue and our expenditures fluctuate back and forth. And again, it doesn't affect fund balance, but it does make the numbers look different.
And just so everyone remembers, that's the pass-through to offset retirement, yeah.
So this is, again, we just spoke about this in L4029. This is showing our millage rates that are supporting our general fund. Our operating non-homestead is 18 mills. Again, there's no change. Our operating homestead, which is our hold harmless millage, there will be a reduction of 0.1855, which is a factor of, again, hold harmless, you can only levy $627 per student. If we're anticipating a reduction in students, then the amount of hold harmless that we can levy goes down. As well as we had a higher increase last year in the number of students that we had anticipated losing. And so then you have to make an adjustment for the money that you collected in the prior year. So if you have less students than we projected, you make an adjustment to this year. So that's why we see the reduction in hold harmless millage.
So just a quick question, explaining there, when you say a reduction in students, is that a reduction in overall students or a reduction in students for our resident population?
Overall students. So this is just a slide showing our enrollment, trying to show this before, and our projected amount, 4289, that's projected of what our fall count will be, which is why you see 200 instead of, and that's just total, that's total FDE students, not actually what our blended count will be. Some of our major budget assumptions, again, we talked about it, a decrease of 195, that's the blended student count. We're anticipating again that we're going to get Medicaid funding an additional amount next year, an increase in AVRIS funding. Our foundation revenue, each of the three plans has shown a $250 per pupil increase. Our PA-18 funding, while our spending in special ed is going up, as a percentage of the county's spending, we're losing ground a little bit.
Like from the ISD.
From the ISD. So when all the other districts go up more than we do, we don't, even though we're increasing, our share of what we get goes down a little bit. So that's why we're seeing that reduction there.
Can you explain that again? Sorry.
It's part of the formula. So all the other, so there's a formula to generate that lets you know how much P18 funding you get. Part of that is based on your total expenditures, but then they have a pot of money, and then it's your percentage of what's allowable, and our percentage of the total has gone down.
Is it for a smaller district?
Yeah, it's because we're a smaller district and we're in
Okay.
declining
That's
enrollment.
fine. Okay, I just was thinking like, wait, why
Yeah.
would that be equivalent?
Yeah,
Okay.
and a lot of the other districts, the ones that are growing or have a higher special education population.
Or they have more center programs for special ed, so that they're,
That comes off, that always
Yeah.
comes off the top, so unfortunately. And then, as we talked about, our UAL decrease 15.02 to 13.51%, and then they eliminated our 147L4, the 532,000.
Can I just point out, that's a big hit, because if you remember a while ago, employees paid 3% for healthcare in their retirement. They removed that requirement, and basically they told us all, in a sense, you get a 3% raise, but don't worry, districts, we're gonna cover the cost. Because it wasn't codified into law, as we all, everyone, even at this board table, advocated to our local representatives and senators that this is going to be where they say, okay, we're going to cover it, and then as soon as they don't, because it's not codified into law, Now they're basically saying they're gonna eliminate that. So the cost that was really on the employee to pay to get retirement, to healthcare and retirement, that most of us were paying, some of us were paying, depending when you started, they paid for it last year, and that's it. And that was promised to be paid. So they have not finished their budget. Again, I would really urge people to connect with your local representatives, because that was promised that that would be covered by the state.
And now it would be covered by the district.
By the district.
Now it's.
So it's still not the
Right.
employee, like, if they're not going back to the employee and saying, well, you gotta restart paying the 3%. Now that they're basically saying the district has to cover those costs,
And right now it's showing repealed in all three plans.
like in all three budgets that have been presented.
So this is why we don't like line items. We
Mhm.
wanted it in, per pupil funding.
So my question would be then, just to take that a little further, because this is a benefit for the employee.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So when we talk about, when we look
Yeah,
at
small amount. It's the old timers like me. New timers, unfortunately, the state took away all
All
of
of it.
healthcare retirement, which that's a bigger issue. It's why it's
Right.
harder to get people in the profession, but yes.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
but we do have a significant number of
Old
seasoned,
timers.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Veteran.
mature, seasoned employees. Well, my point here is though, I think when we talk about a total compensation package, which is what we talk about in the work world, right? This is a benefit that we now have to pick up, but it continues with the employee. So again, when we talk about, again, raises, we talk about all kinds of packages, you know, do we then introduce this total compensation view? Because this is a great expense that we will be covering in our books in perpetuity, as some people would say, or this is a legacy cost.
Unfortunately, districts don't offer the retirement package, the state does, and unfortunately, any new hire,
Won't
it
get-
won't apply to
Right.
them.
But again, just to understand, because $532,000 is a significant amount of money to build and bank into the budget as we move forward, right?
Yeah, it was-
Because
it
we're
was
gonna have
helpful.
to, we're gonna have to
We
cover
have to
that.
cover it.
Yeah,
Yep.
so just, again, just to, when we go through and talk to our seniors or, you know, tenured employees, have them understand that this is a benefit and we're covering it, you know, as we move forward within negotiation talks.
Agreed.
So under expenditures, again, we have negotiated staff increases about 1.9 million. Our custodial contract will go up about $26,000. Staff reductions, transportation reductions, about 1.5 million. We'll have a slide, we'll get to that in a minute, talk about that. We have an increase in property casualty, that's an estimate of about 10% increase. Our health benefits, 3.0 increase this year for the hard cap. Again, corresponding to the decrease in the UAL in revenue, we have the same thing in expenditures. Our copier lease is at the end of its life. We actually have one payment in July. And then we're gonna try to ride those copiers out for a year. And then we'll come back and look at something else and see if we get, so that cost is, it's actually about a little over 90,000. So we'll just have one payment again this year. And then our retirement rate this year, the highest, so we have about 6 different rates, 6 different plans, depending on where you started, what you chose. The highest rate this year was 29.91, and in the past, we have budgeted at that rate. But the whole plan in 2012, when they changed these retirement plans, the whole point to that was that over time, as you get new employees in, they would select a different plan, and so the amount that's responsible for the district to pay would go down. So the highest rate is actually going from 29.91 to 27.51. We have gone through and actually calculated a weighted average of all our employees. That weighted average for West Bloomfield is 26.17. So we're actually going to, we're budgeting on the 26.17 this year. So that's the first time that something that we've done here in the district.
A question about the increase in property and casualty insurance.
Mhm.
We have newer buildings, we have less buildings. Why is it going up?
Well, the whole plan in 2012, when they changed these retirement plans, the whole point to that was that over time, as you get new employees in, they would select a different plan, and so the amount that's responsible for the district to pay would go down. So
Insurance
Same
all
I guess because
over.
insurance.
Right, I know,
Right.
mean, shoot.
I mean,
Our Chico building is bigger.
much
More
more.
valuable.
You know, it's a bigger
Okay.
building, and replacement value would be higher. And every year, it seems like they add a couple different new types of insurances that we should have,
Okay.
so.
I think it's historically been about between 8 and 10%.
Some years better than others.
Yeah.
Okay, so to talk about the 1.5 million in staff and other reductions, we have 1.0 high school teacher, 2.0 elementary teacher, a curriculum coordinator, the director of maintenance who will be leaving us October 26th, the executive director of DEI, the high school dean of students, the high school security paraprofessional, instructional coach, speech language path, and then we're combining the routes for transportation, as we talked about. Just to mention though, on all the staff reductions, these are all done, these people are either leaving the district or they are retiring. So again, this is part of our attrition model, whereas each person comes and retires or leaves, we take a look at those positions and look at what we can do. And again, as our number of students declines, I know Johanna has a really good model when she's talking about this, that if this is our staff and this is our teachers, this is our staff and this is our students, the students go down and then we don't find that out until the fall, and we don't go and make drastic cuts and lay off teachers or anything. We just kind of weather it for the year and then we see where we're at, and then to get it back to be in line, then we look at what staff are leaving and make those decisions. And again, part of our attrition model to right size the district as our number of students go down. And again, I mentioned it somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Oh, I
I
think I
gave you
mentioned-
the wrong month. It's Ted's last day is September 30th, so I
Oh, but,
apologize. That's
yeah,
my
but
fault.
for, oh,
yeah,
no, it's all right, from October on is
It's when the
is
savings,
yeah, is when the savings
Yeah.
are there. They'll be gone from October on. But then again, as our number of, again, we've reduced staff, but if for some reason we have an influx of a lot of students that come, then we're gonna have to look again at the teachers we've reduced, and we might have to add back. I mean, that's always a possibility, depending on the number of students and how they fall. I mean, again, they don't always fall in nice, neat buckets, but we do the best we can. These are some of the legislative recommendation highlights. They're all looking at the same foundation allowance. We have the governor's proposal in the Senate. They're looking at doing this weighted proposal where they're going to take Section 41 and at-risk and kind of lump it together. The House wasn't looking at that. They were looking at an increase for it, but they really weren't looking to blend them together, which is why you see our at-risk. It's showing a decrease in at-risk, but then we're getting this weighted increase. So we're losing at-risk, but they're going to roll it all together with Section 41. I mean, that's what they're talking about. Whether that's going to happen or not, we still don't know. But that's kind of how I'm showing it. And that's why you also see a reduction in bilingual education, because they're rolling that in. And then another one that's a little disappointing, 61D, the CTE incentive roll-up. It was an additional money for each of our CTE students, and each of the plans has repealed that as well. So that's a loss for us for $104,000.
I don't know. I like that they're doing the weighted pupil membership. It makes me crazy though that it's also a categorical, because you can't rely on it from year to year. And if it doesn't say bilingual or at risk, then it's easier for them to get rid of it in future years. That's just my political stand.
One other note is on 31AA, if you remember the safety and security, there is one version of it that removes
Yeah.
attorney-client privilege. So again, they promised us that we'd have one July 1st. Unfortunately, I don't, Nancy, do you think we're gonna get a budget from the state July 1st? Yeah, I don't. That's, again, something that as you talk to our representatives and our state senator, is to really encourage safety and security, that grant for them to go with the version that is kind of a compromise between what happened last year and this year. Because that's about $660,000 of funding to the district.
So a quick question on the at-risk, and Stacey, I heard your point, the 2265, that's everything lumped together? So for, again, all the at-risk programs and the category, they were reduced it by 2?
So the 2.2 is what we currently get this year.
Okay.
And then if they would lump it together with bilingual, which is 114,000, and they would then give us an increase, and we would get 2.5 million, is what they're saying.
That's about
but-
200.
So for the 2.5, then, that is, again, to your point, Stacey, some of that is categorical money, so we really don't know how much of that we can keep next year, not year.
You don't have the formula.
So they just get 2.5 and say, go level up.
Right, and then we wouldn't have we wouldn't have a separate line for bilingual. We would just have.
So they're saying all
money.
districts, you pull that apart yourselves?
Which if normally if it was in a per pupil funding, it would be
It'd be
fine.
different, yeah, but it's
But when
not.
it's like this, it's a gain.
Yeah, I got
I
that.
think.
So moving from the general fund, this is our food service budget for next year. We have, for the last number of years, we've had what they consider an excessive fund balance. So we've been working very hard to work that down. We've been buying new equipment. You can only obviously spend it for food service. We're purchasing new equipment. This year we're purchasing the new equipment for Chico from this, as well as the high school renovation are things that we're looking to work this fund balance down. And so our proposed budget for next year has the fund balance at about $805,000.
What does the state require you to have it at? For, doesn't it have to be under 30?
I don't, it's at a percentage, I think it's a,
Okay, I'm sorry.
no, it's part of your expenditures. You can only have so many months worth of expenditures
Okay.
in the budget.
Can I ask a question? How did ours get so high? Did we just not
I
spend
think
It's
it?
that free lunches.
the free lunches and
They
they
pay you for
go
each one.
Okay.
and it didn't look like they've been purchasing a lot of equipment. I don't, you can tell me it didn't look like we've been purchasing a lot of equipment.
Yeah.
We do have a lot that we've been replacing, which is really great. So,
Good problem to have.
I think because of the cycles of when we're doing construction in those buildings.
this is our community service fund budget. This includes our year-round programming, our facility rental. We had some grant revenue, we don't have any grant revenue in here anymore. And then our early childhood and our kids club. This would be our paid preschool, not our GSRP. So our paid 3-year-old preschool is in this budget. Again, we're looking, we're gonna add, actually gonna have a small, we're looking at this point to have a very, very small deficit, about $16 is what we're estimating. We do we'll have a fund balance about $246,000. For next year, we have increased the outgoing transfer. So that part of the rental, we take the rental less the cost for the person that operates all that rental for us, and we transfer that back to the general fund because that's really a general fund. That's a source of revenue for the general fund. So we'll be transferring that back to that's part of our proposed budget change. So we'll be transferring $220,000 back to the general fund.
This is also, like the Decathlon, and
This is all of our community service.
so that's this.
That's in there too.
Thank
But the
you.
money we transfer back to the general fund is related to rentals.
That's fine.
No,
So I
I'm
was
just saying, but that's what it's related to. It's not related to these other programs.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep, but that's all, everything for community service is in there. And next year, we've actually broken it out more so that we can see it. So we have a whole bunch of new lines showing all the different programs separately.
Okay, thank you.
Our debt fund, pretty straightforward, principal and interest. That's what happens. We bring in taxes and we pay the principal and interest. Next year, we'll actually have 2 pieces of debt that are rolling off, and we will be selling our 3rd installment of the bond.
It's the 2023 bond.
We have 2 pieces of debt that are rolling off this will be the last year that we're paying on them. And then, but we will issue a new piece of debt. As our
The
third
third
installment of
series
the bond.
of the 20-year
The
bond,
third series.
which will be for Dory.
And I apologize, can we just go back, when I was looking at the community service and then you rolled off the grant revenue for 6696 and amendment number 1, so we had no additional grant revenue for 20?
No, that was a United Way grant that we received in 23, 24, 22, 23, I think, actually. We had it for 3 years. And
Okay,
we used the rest of that money in 24, 25.
so our other grant revenue is in the other general fund category, is that where it is?
Yes, the rest of our grant
Okay.
revenue is in the general fund.
Very good,
And then actually, I mean, food service, that is a federal grant.
got it.
So just, actually, it's our biggest grant. So that was debt service. Debt service is pretty straightforward, principal. And again, this is just showing our debt service, the amount we levy has stayed the same. So we'll be levying 6.15 again between the 5 pieces of debt that we have. Safety fund. This, again, pretty straightforward. We get our taxes, a little bit of interest, and then our various projects that we're looking to spend this year. We're looking to move a little, some of the general fund expenditures that we can pay for out of the sinking fund, some of our actual repairs over to the sinking fund to help alleviate the general fund. The sinking fund, millage, you can see, has gone down, although because taxable values do go up, this does not reduce the amount of money we bring in for revenue. But again, it's rolled back. By Headley. This sinking fund expires at the end of this year, and then we will be levying the new sinking fund that was voted in November of 25, and we'll start levying that for the 27 tax year.
Nancy, what's the projection on the interest? Because it looks like it's taken a small hit.
Yes, our interest, so the interest has been going down all year. Last year, the interest rates were a lot better in 24, 25 than they have been in 25, 26. It seems like I get, at least every month, I get an email from the bank saying, your interest rates have gone down again, which hasn't been very helpful. But yeah, 24, 25 was just a good year.
So that means that the bond interest rate has gone down to someplace in this slide. Should we look at that or no?
No, there isn't, bonds isn't brought to the board. In this map, it's not brought. Yes, the interest that we are earning on our bonds will go down, although we've had, we actually have one investment, a very large one that's coming due the 12th, right? So that one was purchased like a year and a half or 2 years ago, so that bond is good, is set, and even the one that we sold last year is good because we sold those investments and laddered them out. It will be the one that we're selling in the spring, spring, that when we go to put out the investments, we probably won't be able to get as much interest revenue as we have been on these last 2 series.
And just for further clarity, the interest revenue from the bond goes back into the capital fund and not into the general fund?
It goes back into the bond. Yep, it's required to go back into the bond. And then if we earn anything over what we're paying in interest, we're required to pay arbitrage.
And we have though, haven't we?
Yes, we paid arbitrage on the 2017 bond last July. We had to pay that. And then we have a liability right now on the 2023 bond to pay arbitrage again. And that's a calculation that PFM does for us every year.
So maybe that lower interest rate may be a little helpful, so then we don't have to pay the arbitrage. Because the
That's right.
arbitrage was kind of, it was a pretty nice.
It was,
amount.
yes,
Yeah.
it's
Pretty
steep.
much. Yeah.
We owe over $1 million.
Yeah, so maybe
Right now.
this will help us some, because again, either way, we're gonna even out, so.
Yep.
Okay.
This is sinking fund millage. And again, you cannot spend the sinking fund on salaries or staff.
You can't do bond dollars either.
Either,
You
yeah.
don't present
Yep,
bond,
yep.
but we get that question a lot. It's like, can't the bond or sinking fund assist general fund? And unfortunately, it can't. Or fortunately, depending on
On
how
how
you
you
see
look
it.
at it, yeah.
And then this slide is our student activity fund. Back with GASB 84, they changed the rules and we are now required to have a budget for our student activity fund. So this is a rule that's been in place a few years now. So this is our student activity budget.
Okay, so everybody process this over the next week or so, and then if you want any clarifying questions or concerns or don't understand something, make sure that you email.
I have a quick question. So Nancy, in regards, and I just want to make sure I'm going back to slide number 1. So when we look at, again, Amendment 1, right? So at Amendment 1, we had a operating deficit of $3.9 million. The proposed budget of Amendment 2, you're not asking us to approve or tonight, but you're showing us what those numbers is. We're coming in at about a $2.4 million deficit. All right, and so if we look at that, the revenue is staying, well, the revenue is going up a little bit. The
It's going up
expense-
about $1 million.
The expenses are going down a little bit, and that's getting us to our $2.4 million. So my question was last year's, again this year, we can take another amendment. Do we plan to do another amendment before the audit?
No, so this would be the last, we would have to do any amendment before June 30th. And so this is the last, so the second amendment is the amendment that we're going to take.
Okay, so you're gonna take
But
this
there-
one?
yeah,
But
there will
then
be
there'll
a,
be a final.
there'll be a final budget
With the audit.
with the audit. That's when you actually.
No, the second amendment will be the
Is the
final
final.
amendment.
The actual,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yes,
Yeah.
then you'll have your
It
actual.
didn't
and
sound
then
right
we
to
have
me
to-
when I said it out
The
loud.
Yeah,
second
well,
one, yeah.
in the past, when we talk about what we used to do a third amendment, when we would get a little closer so we could see exactly the activities that we would have in the district. And it would come, very reasonable to, what our estimate was. So that's the reason why I asked, because $2.4 million at this stage in the game, and June 30th is our close, it's still quite a variance. So want to see if we can get as close as possible before the audit comes back and tell us they've found $4 million. Because,
Wouldn't that be
I
nice?
hope so.
well, no, actually not.
Well, it would be nice if it was found that way.
Well, that's what's happened historically, and I think it sounds like it's a great thing to do, but is, though, we could have done something within the year with that $4 million. So it doesn't give us a full operating picture of how we can continue to do our programs or assess our programs, because we would have had $4 million more. So why it sounds good, it tells us that we haven't really kind of managed what we had on the books to manage with.
Well, I think when you look at the final budget that's presented today versus the actual, each time that it's been presented through our audit, it's within the normal variance of a budget. As you know, we're asking you to approve a budget that has a $75 million revenue. That's a decline of about $5.9 million, and that's,
I hope that's wrong.
that is specifically because most of our funding is dependent on two things: what the state gives us and enrollment. And we are making, again, every school district in Michigan is making a lot of assumptions to get to the budget. We tend to be a little bit more conservative. I do think we'll be closer this year than we were last year. But the budget is getting better. I know it might not feel that way. But like last year when the board approved a budget, it approved a budget that would take our fund balance down to 13.11% and 13.78% last year. So when we came to you in June and asked you to approve the budget with a structural on-paper deficit, it was taking our fund balance to 13.11 and 13.78. This year, what we're asking you to approve takes our fund balance with these numbers, with the assumption that revenue is going down because the state hasn't told us any differently. It's taking our fund balance to about 14.36 and 15%. So the fund balance projection is getting better from last year. I know and I understand, and
No, it would be nicer if it was tighter.
I would, Yes, so Deborah, I agree with you that we want it, and I think this year it will be. It won't, you will not see the swing that you saw last year from the final to the actual. But, you know, like in each, there's a lot, there's thousands and thousands of budget lines. And so, for example, if I don't spend a portion of my budget and 20 other people don't either, that adds up. So we spend based on necessity. Some things are budgeted, but they come in June 30th, we close the books, and it's, you know, so the variance that you're seeing is still between, it's around 4%, which, you know, again, we would like it to be tighter. We want to get to the 1-2% club, right? But it's still within MSBO's recommendation.
Which they recommend between 2 and 8. So
2 and
it's
8,
really
yeah.
on the lower end
So,
of the swing.
But I would say we still have a very healthy fund balance. Nancy and Johanna said it perfectly. It's kind of a delay when you see staffing reductions because students go down, staffing goes down. And in this packet, you're going to see some of the historical staffing, and you're going to see that trend through attrition because we want to maintain programming for students with the understanding that we can't forever start every year with a structural deficit. But at the same time, I think we can all agree that some of the decisions we've had to make this year were very difficult. But again, it's not, unfortunately, if state funding stays on the course it is, it's the conversation we're going to have every year. If not, we won't have a strong fund balance. So, you know, to see that we're right around the 15% range after weathering some storms that we've weathered as it relates to population loss and state funding reductions that we faced this year, you know, I think, you know, we're in a workable situation. I'm not saying not hard, but workable.
Yeah, what continues to concern me though, when we talk about fund balance again, if we look at what our fund balance is and what our deficit is, we're talking, we got about a good 3 years if we continue to spend on our fund balance. Because that isn't the healthiest position to say, hey, we're going to spend on our fund balance. It is there for a reason. And if we keep, again, with the deficits, we're eating into fund balance, but we're reducing what we have as a cushion, if you will, which is recommended by MASB and SBO, that we should have. So that is always the concern. And so when that switch happens at the end of the year, that is money that we could have really baked into the management process. And that's my concern.
I understand, I agree. Okay. Thank you, Nancy, and thank you for this extra stuff, because I had some wonderings about this, and I think this is great. Thank you. So when you guys look through this, a lot of it I think is self-explanatory, but if you need any additional, yeah, send it your way.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. That's our budget to actual is next.
This is our May budget to actual. You'll notice that because you have not yet approved the second amendment, the first amendment budget is still on here. So that's what we're using as a comparison. We are very close, actually a little ahead of where we were last year. And you can see that we have less variances as we go through the year. We're catching up with some of our variances that we had earlier. Again, our federal revenue, we just are in a really late timeline this year with title being approved so late. So we're still catching up with our requesting of funds, which is something that we normally don't do. Normally it says this is, title is approved in January, and it was March, I think, that we finally, late March, April, that we finally got it approved. And you can't request funds until it's fully approved. So they were just very late, the state was very late in its timeline this year. Adult ed, we are still waiting for it to be approved. So this is an issue. Hopefully by the end of the week it will be fully approved. So that variance.
Will it come in by the end of the year if it's approved this late? Or
Yes.
do you have to do adjustments in the next
No,
This year?
it has to be.
Okay.
It has to be. So we'll be okay.
All right.
We're doing, Adult Ed is doing an adjustment tomorrow.
Okay.
It's due tomorrow, so they said they would have it approved for us. And again, we can't request money from them until that's fully approved. Instructional staff support, we've talked about this one. We have a lot of things in instructional staff support that are purchased at the beginning of the year. All our computer programs that we use, everything that we usually pay for right in July. Actually, sometimes we prepay it in June. So those expenditures happen a lot earlier. And then general administration, I noticed that my explanation didn't print again. Anyway, general administration, we are just, we're running less on the spending than we have. We're just trending less on the spending than that one. So other than that, they're all looking pretty consistent.
Anyone have any questions? Okay. Move on to number 15, the IA budget.
Here we go. So the International Academy, they are looking, their current 26-27 proposed budget is looking at a projected enrollment increasing from 576 students to 590. The increase is mostly in Birmingham and Bloomfield Hills. We are actually looking to, we'll probably, as of when this budget was created, we are going down one student. We had 38 students in 25-26, and they're projecting we're going to have 37. We still have 40 slots, 10 slots a grade, but right now we're looking to have 37 students next year. They're looking for an increase, the $250 that we're projecting to get per student. So that will increase our tuition by the $250, plus they charge us an extra 10% of the base foundation. They were running a deficit. They're going to reduce two teachers next year to help them move into a surplus.
That's so strange, because they have more kids. They're going from
Yeah.
576 to 590, and they're reducing staff.
But they were looking at a deficit, and so they had to cut. So that's what they're looking to do.
Curious, I know like not each district gets the same amount of slots, but how, I don't know, you might not have the answer, but how did Birmingham and Bloomfield get extra slots?
Over time,
Yeah.
I think, so when it first, when the IA first appeared, I actually did the accounting for it. It's very strange. It's coming full circle. Yeah, so when I worked at the ISD, but at that point, everyone had the same number of slots.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then over time, some districts have given up their slots, and other districts have said, oh, well, we'll take those slots.
Mm-hmm.
So it is just kind of
They supply more
morphed.
teachers and things like that.
Yeah, it's
Huron
morphed into what you
Valley.
see.
Huron Valley and Troy,
They have
like
their own
40
They have-
to 100.
Yeah, I know.
Well, they have their
I
own.
mean,
So Huron Valley has its own IA, and Troy has
Right.
the.
But like Bloomfield Hills has way more
More than us.
slots than
But
us.
they took slots from districts that no longer have slots, like
Yeah.
Fordale and Southfield, and they gave up their slots.
Yeah.
Yeah, some
So-
districts give them up because
They,
they want the kids to
In
stay,
their
and
districts, or-
they're gonna pay the 10% premium on the foundation allowance.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Next item is the Oakland County School Board Association Amendment to Bylaws and Resolution. You guys all have copies of that. You can read through it, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask or reach out to OCSBA. I do think that we should break it up when we take action on it at the next meeting with the bylaw, like have them as separate agenda items, since they are vastly different. One's for the new resolution of like what their
Client journey.
yeah,
privilege.
like what their, oh my God,
Position.
their positions are, thank you, I couldn't think of the word, and then the other one is actual bylaw amendments, so, unless you guys disagree with that, I think it should be two different agenda items.
I'm great with that.
You're okay with that? And you can read through them, and see how you feel about this. And then the next thing is, I guess that's it. I thought there was one more thing. No, there is.
Here is a,
It's
Oh,
not
that, but
that.
I was thinking there was another thing with Oakland County, with us, Oakland County, but it's just the.
you've already divided
Just
them
the
into two in your head.
the two, yeah, it's the two. Okay, so we'll divide those up, as we think about that. Okay, so agenda item number 17 is our closed session for supervaluation, the final one for the year. And so I need a motion from somebody. Ashley?
I move to go into closed session for the purpose of superintendent's year evaluation under section 8(1)A of the open meeting.
You have a second? Alright. Motion to go into close for the purpose of the superintendent's year-end evaluation under section 8(1)A of the open meetings act. Is there a second? I'll roll call. Art?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Nick? Deborah?
Yes.
Kirsten?
Yes.
Stacy's yes. So we're going to closed session. It is 8, it always reflects the like 8:56.
8:56.
8:56. And when we come out, we will have one more agenda item of approving the evaluation. You want to go to 10, take over the rest Is this the one we got today? We got two different, just
I just did the round trip to MSC that one day. Okay, just from here to there.